So if someone just starting out making their own business, their online business, or maybe they have a business and they're just now wanting to start getting a presence online, where would you suggest starting to promote their business? And promoting doesn't necessarily mean paid ads, but just, having a Facebook page, having Pinterest, a website, all the stuff. Where would you start now?
It depends on the type of business.
All right. That's a good point.
So if it were you,
let's go with you. Okay. We'll go with me first. Because I'm just starting. Let's do 2 examples. Me trying to put out content for my personal brand online, and I'm just starting. So this is perfect. So where would we'll say where you would start, and we'll say where I started. Oh, go ahead. You go first.
Okay. So I think the main thing to consider is where are the people who are going to be interested in what you are sharing. Excuse me. So when you said you want to help 100,000 people, I would narrow that even a little bit more. Who are the people?
For me, that's a good point. I wanted to cover this earlier and I forgot. So after coming up with 100,000 or more people, I decided, okay, well, I want how am I best to help people? What are the things that I know about to help people? And after thinking about that for, 4 months or 5 months, I came up with, well, I am creative, I am caring, and I'm competitive, along with other things. But those 3, as I look back on my 31 years of life, those are the things that motivate me. Those are the things that I end up doing, whether money's involved or not. Those are just the things I love doing. So I love your smirk, because that was a great question to lead me into that.
Oh no, I wasn't leading, but
well, it worked. But for me, yeah. So other people that are creative, caring, and competitive, which usually most people have some sort of that in them, and so most of my content can at least help. So I don't know, creative, caring, and competitive people. One of those things, and there's always some overlap. Maybe some people are 2 of those 3, or so. But for me, starting out, my family, my friends, the people that I've been around, that's my main audience for right now.
So are the people men or women? Are they older, middle-aged, young, children? Just something to consider as you go forward.
I will say this. I'm making this piece of content. So we scheduled our talk, and we thought of different things we could talk about related to creative, caring, and competitive. We decided on creative parenting, and we decided on creating businesses online. Those are 2 separate things, but there could be overlap. And
sure.
So whenever I was thinking about questions for you and how this would go, I definitely had people in mind from my real life, like one of my friends that has a 3-year-old. What kind of questions do I think he would want to know about raising his child? And he's new to parenting. And then my best friend, he has a 1-year-old, and what does he want to know as a completely new parent? And how, I don't know anything about parenting, but here I am with a kid, as pretty much every parent probably is, because there's no training for it, really. Yeah. So I have people in mind for each different piece of content, and naturally there will be other people wanting those same questions and help. So I think probably wasn't the best answer for you. My audience is probably a little more broad than what people would recommend, but
probably, but that doesn't mean that that's a bad thing, because as you go along, I think you'll find out who a lot of them are, and then you can gear the content more toward that if you choose. Because you're talking about monetization, right? And eventually.
Yeah, eventually. I mean, It would be nice. So for me, definitely helping the 100,000 people. But if I think I can help more people if I can monetize it in a way that I'm not having to do a bunch of other side jobs
Right.
that take away from that. So yeah, the monetization is so that I can actually do more and help more versus me
Yeah.
being rich on making a podcast, which isn't entertaining to me.
Right. So, okay, let's go back to promotion. I just asked those questions because I was wondering who the people were so that I knew
They're
where they
great
were.
questions. Right.
Okay. So, so where are your people then? They're on Facebook?
So do you want me to just tell you what I
YouTube?
ended up doing? And then you can kind of, I think they're everywhere. I think as an individual, when I'm just, my natural self goes to Facebook, sometimes Instagram, very rarely Twitter. So, and I've noticed that other people are very similar. Like they have one main social media that they like to go to. I use a lot of YouTube, again, visual learner. I like watching videos. But I know that my audience, since it's a bit broad, is probably pretty much everywhere. Some people might be a lot on YouTube. Some people, like my family, on Facebook every day, you know? So for me, I make a piece of content and then I put it basically everywhere. That's the main 5 or 6. But when I was with Streamline Gaming, when I started that one, since it was my first one and that was a bit overwhelming to put it everywhere, what I did was since I used Facebook and I knew how to use Facebook, I was like, well, I'll just start with a Facebook page. So I started small and grew. But now that I kind of know a bit more about distribution, I'm like, well, people are everywhere from my audience, so I'm just going to put it everywhere.
Yeah, you can do that. And then you can study that after a while and see if one of the areas is just, there's no point in putting it there anymore. You know, like for me, Twitter is kind of a waste of my time. You know, I don't get enough traffic from there to make it worth my time where I could take that time period that I would spend on Twitter and put it for me on Pinterest instead. You know, that I would put all my time there because the Twitter time doesn't end up being a return on investment for me. So, yeah, it's harder for me to answer your thing because you're starting and you have a more broad way of distributing right now. But I would just look at where your people are. If they're on Facebook, then I would focus on Facebook. And there's nothing wrong with putting it everywhere either. It's just time consuming. And then when you're spending time doing that, you can't do something else. So for you, here's the 3 that I would say. Facebook, because that's where your family and friends are. YouTube, because I think it's good to build. I think that's still a good place to build. And then wherever, I think like iTunes or
I got my podcast
Stitcher.
on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, pretty much all the big ones, that was cool. You know, you make the podcast. I don't know if you know this about podcasts, but you basically have a hosting server. So basically I make a podcast, I put it on my server, and then I link iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, whatever. So I link all of those. Once they're linked, I post my podcast on my one channel, my server, and then all of them just pull from it every 2 hours or a day or whatever. And it's so easy. That's great. That's the cool part.
So I think being on those platforms where people are looking for podcasts and making sure that you have the right keywords so that they can find you is probably the best thing to do in that case.
I will say that if I were starting all over right now, I would definitely do it similar to how I did it with Streamline Gaming, which was my first one, which was start with whatever I know. And for me at the time, it was Facebook. That's about all I really knew how to do as a user. So I created a page there, learned how to create a page, learned how to distribute my content, you know, post stuff without feeling super anxious about it or whatever. Then once I felt comfortable there, then I went to, you know, I think I tried Twitter and then Pinterest, probably based off of your suggestions, Pinterest. And Pinterest for me was slow for a while. I still don't really know what I'm doing there. I do because you told me, but still I don't, from a user standpoint, I don't really use it a lot. So I don't really understand it very well. But I do understand, but it's actually my highest performing social media for Streamline Gaming. So thank you, Sheila, for helping me with that. I wanted to.
Oh, that's awesome news.
Yeah. Like as I took a couple months off, I came back and, I checked my analytics and it's like, oh, you had 50 people today from social media. And I was like, and usually that in the past that was Facebook, but I look and it's like, oh, that's just from Pinterest search engine picking up and people saving my pins. Thank you, Sheila.
Yeah.
I call
my pleasure.
Yeah, real quick for the audience. I call Sheila, and I don't know if I've ever told you this I don't know if I've ever told you, but I told my friends like I call you my Digimom, like my digital mom, because you've really been there for me from the.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah. I tell my friends that I have probably 5 or 6 months, but you're my Digimom, and you really have. You've been there from the very beginning when I didn't know anything about anything online.
You knew more than you give yourself credit for.
Yeah, when I met you, I had studied it for about a year, so I did know quite a bit.
Yeah.
But in the whole scheme of things, I was a very little baby jumping into the world. And you've really helped. You helped me with the Pinterest. 2 years later, it's like, whoa, Pinterest is my best performing thing. Thanks for telling me about that.
We better work on that then, because you could boost that up more.
Yeah, we'll have to work on it. But yeah, you're my Digimom, so thanks. So let's talk about real quick your husband. So my case is a bit different. I've ran a website for a couple of years and then I started my personal brand. For your husband, it was his first site, right? His magician site.
The local site, you mean?
Yeah, the local.
So he's going to have two. He's going to have his local site, which is set up essentially as a very small website. There's no blog or anything on it. It's just informational so that people can contact him to book a job.
Cool. So if people search magicians for parties and
right
wherever you are, he pops up. Cool.
Yeah.
So for people doing a local, wanting to bring awareness to their local gig, whether it be a local place or them being a person that wants to provide services such as a magician, starting with just a plain website with information, that's good because it can. And why is that good? It's good because when people Google, you pop up, right?
Right, because people do use the internet so much more than the yellow pages now. So we don't even have an ad in there. You have to pay. And so we have the website, and then he markets himself in cold calling and in other ways locally. So I don't know a whole lot about local SEO, and it is different. So that's something that I'm having to learn to try to help him, get more gigs. So
interesting. SEO is search engine optimization, which, again, when I met Sheila like that, I was just learning about that. And I was like, what? And people kept saying SEO. And of course, now knowing what it is, it's like, oh yeah, it's basically how people look things up and how your website gets placed in the search results. And you can do stuff to your title and the text that you put on your web pages to show up higher. And so I didn't realize that it was quite different for local, but that makes sense, I guess, because
it is somewhat different. And I'm learning about that right now to try to figure it out a little bit more, because I noticed, there's Google for Businesses. There's a lot of things that are very different than anything that I use. So it's a new learning curve for me, for sure.
When you set up his website or helped him set up his website for his local magician thing, did you, what were the steps you had to do to get Google to start knowing that your site existed? Like, cause don't you have to tell Google Analytics and Google search that your site exists? Don't you have to link the site? How does that work?
Actually, you probably don't.
Oh,
Google,
it finds it.
yeah.
Interesting.
So I don't have the same things on there that I do on my big site. We don't have a site map and all of those things. But it doesn't seem to, Google, it's getting better and better and better at being able to provide results. And so I don't really know. I don't know, the ins and outs of that. I just know that there were some things that we put locations in. But I have not, optimized that site as well as it could be. It does fine. He gets found, but I think we could be higher up.